The world is becoming a multipolar from the usual unipolar order. The formation of BRICS would counter the existing imperialist hegemony. Mr. Zemedeneh Negatu is a global chairman for Fair Fax Africa Fund, and he puts the genesis of BRICS this way.
First and foremost, it's important to explain to you viewers what BRICS is all about. It was a group that was formed back in 2009 by 4 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And then a couple, 3 years later, they added South Africa. So now it's called BRICS, which is the S stands for South Africa. The whole idea of the BRICS is to really be counter the world order as it exists today. At least that's the aim, both geopolitically, but more importantly, on the economic front. I mean, at least when they were set up, there was and still is this question of, do we want the global order as it exists today to continue? And the reason that question came up is because the world order as we know today was created after 1945, after the end of the Second World War, which was led by the United States. So the World Bank, the IMF, the UN, these institutions were created then in a different era. And to this day, they're obviously very much influenced by the United States, okay? Because the US was a superpower then, and still is a superpower. So these groupings, if you take China, if you take India, 40 years ago, they were very, very, very poor countries. Forget 1945. India, in fact, in 1945 was under British colonial rule. So they were saying the world has changed in the last 70 years, 70 some odd years, but the way the world is run today does not reflect the reality on the ground. China is today the second largest economy in the world.
Lately, the BRICS has embraced 6 members from 40 applicants for membership. Ethiopia is one of the new 6 nations chosen by the BRICS. According to Zemedeneh, Ethiopia has been chosen by BRICS because Ethiopia's economy is one of the fastest growing in Sub Saharan Africa, in addition to its geopolitical importance.
BRICS is a forward-looking grouping, right? Yes, it's substantial, it's influential, as I mentioned here, but over the next decades, they're looking for countries that will be very significant players on the global stage, both geopolitically, but for us as business people on the economic front. They were looking at, and this is my understanding, they looked at the growth pattern of Ethiopia over the last 15 years. One of the fastest growing economies in the world. This is from IMF World Bank data, which anybody can verify. Even the last 3 years, when Ethiopia went through some challenging times. COVID, the internal conflict, the Russia-Ukraine issue. Even during that period, according to the IMF, this year, the forecast is it will be the fastest growing of the 5 largest economies in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Zemedeneh added, strong allies of the West are also becoming member of the BRICS, and for this, Saudi Arabia is a classic example.
Like you mentioned, Saudi Arabia. I just came today from UAE. Doesn't mean these countries will abandon the relationship that they have with the United States, in particular, with the West, but led by the US. It doesn't mean, it's not a mutually exclusive relationship in my view. What they're saying is, we want to have a voice. We've risen, but the system today doesn't recognize us. Okay? So, UAE is a very strong ally of the United States. They trade a lot with the US, they buy a lot of military equipment, the US exports a lot of stuff to Saudi Arabia, UAE. Take Ethiopia. We have a 100+ year relationship with the United States.
Zemedeneh further explained about the de-dollarization projects as follows.
When I talk about de-dollarization, and even some of the thoughtful people within BRICS, when they explain to you this in a thoughtful way, you will understand. It doesn't mean we'll abandon the United States dollar as a reserve currency. That's not going to happen anytime soon. It will gradually decline, but there's nothing viable out there. The euro is not a rival to the dollar, okay? The Chinese yuan has increased in value, but there are a number of issues that would make it difficult for the yuan to be the US dollar level reserve currency. It has increased its power. So what I'm talking about is, let's be practical as BRICS members or even non-BRIC members. When you trade amongst yourselves, try to find a way to swap your currencies. That reduces your exchange risk, it reduces your transaction costs, a lot of it. That's what de-dollarization